We'll just give it a few minutes. Hi guys, how's it going? Just gonna hold off for a moment. And then I will talk through the content that we're going to go through today. So the main purpose of this video call today is to give an insight into what it's like to be a student at university with, a finite source of income and ultimately many things that you want to do, many opportunities. So today I'm going to be talking through things like budgeting, getting your student loan, practical tips around saving money, or in some cases getting more money, and ultimately this is all down to trying to expand the opportunities that we can give ourselves. So that's the main flavor of what we're going to do today. So at the very least, I hope that what you get out of it is some good ideas on what you can do and how you can improve your university experience. It's going to be a little bit different to what you would advise in a normal year, obviously due to the pandemic. Certain situations are going to look very different, and so in order to account for that, I've come up with some ideas on what I think you can do to be adaptable, and I think that's the word really, is adaptable. We need to be able to change in a changing world, and hopefully I'm going to get that across in the upcoming talks. So I think I'll just get going now, as I'm super eager, and even the time is going down a little bit. I think that's okay. So budgeting, very simply, this actually comes from my course. Bit of background around me: I am a chemical engineer. I studied at the University of Manchester, and obviously I did a chemical engineering degree, but as part of our course, we sort of go into industry. And so I worked for a pharmaceutical company for a year as well. And that was really fun, really cool, got to do it. I really advise it if you get the opportunity. Go out there, get working for a company as soon as possible, because you start learning what's actually important for the business world. And some of the stuff you learn at university is really useless and not important. And the sooner that you can filter that from your life, the better you're going to perform in the business world. So that was my university degree. I did a chemical engineering degree. And after that, I moved swiftly and perhaps out of nowhere into finance. And now I work in trading. And I make basically strategies that will perform on the financial markets, and the ultimate purpose is to make money. So my job is now literally to try and make money from money, which is, I think, really cool, and it's quite fun. Some would say not the most ethically inclined, but that's how it is. I think it's a super fun place to be, with some of the best minds in the world. So it's a lot of fun. So that's a bit about me: chemical engineer turned trader, finance, and now I am giving you a lecture on budgeting. So how did I get here? More or less, I was a tutor. I've been a tutor for many years. It's something I really, really enjoy. Teaching people is a fantastic way to generate skills for yourself. So that's talking to people, and also, maintain knowledge. What you'll see in a lot of older people is they're unable to retain simple skills. That could be mathematical. You get those people all the time who say, I just can't do percentages. Those kind of people, you really want to maintain the stuff that you've built in school, because it's going to help you for the rest of your life. So this is probably more important for people who actually don't work in or who aren't studying a very technical degree, more language based or something. Obviously, you're going to want to find other avenues that are going to test your skills, or you run the risk of them degrading over time. So you obviously want to maintain all that and maintain some basic financial knowledge, and that's what I'm going to try and communicate to you here today. So the essence of a budget is super simple, but somehow it ends up not being. Even after you account for everything, it becomes challenging. And so we've got in minus out plus whatever you can generate ends up being your accumulation. And obviously, if you have an accumulation that's negative, then that's going to be bad. Even worse is if you have a negative accumulation beginning and you are taking on a debt, most likely to do your course. However, the way that it works is more like a tax. So there is, in some sense, it's not a debt in the way that you would look at it in traditional finance. And the reason for that is, if you stop earning money, then you will never be liable to pay that debt back. And so it's got a lot of advantages to it compared to a normal debt. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But yeah, so obviously what you get in might be your student loan. It also might be money from parents. If you have parents who are, in a position where they can give you money. And another avenue may well be, salary from a part-time job. Now, bear in mind, due to the pandemic, you've got to change the kind of job that you want to apply for. You don't want to be going for a traditional hospitality role or something at the moment, because there's a lot of competition for those, and there's not a lot of business going for them, obviously due to the lockdowns and things. So you want to try and think of something that's going to be robust to this new world that we're in, which is where the pandemic is stopping some jobs from actually existing for the time being. So if you have a background in something like waitressing in your hometown, you've got to think that there will be some intense competition for the years to come as you go to university. And so if you can pivot into something, and leverage skills that you already have, you're going to be in a good position. So what I mean by that, to get rid of the jargon, is, if you know something that other people don't know, then that is valuable. So if you are studying languages at university, then you can teach a language, and that comes to, sorts of jobs that I think are going to be viable, and I've put them in later on. Equally, if you are really into your technology, maybe you're a computer scientist, so the other side of the spectrum, then perhaps you can teach people programming. And, again, that's a similar style teaching, but there are other things you can do as well. So these are your main avenues of things that are coming in. You've got your maintenance loan, you've got your money from grants or scholarships. This will mostly be set, and there's nothing you can do about it. Same with the money from the parents, unless you are very good at convincing them to give you more money. So the main thing you can do is improve this and this. This you can work on right now, today. You can start generating savings. Obviously, to do that, you need to generate income. So it's going to come from this. But you got to think, if you can get an online job, that's going to be highly beneficial for you. Because if you get something, you work for your local pub or something, whilst that's fine right now, you're most likely going to move to the other side of the country for your university. And so you want to make sure that you are resilient to that. So I'll talk through the actual structure of the student loan in a moment. But the other thing to keep in mind of is the other side of the equation. So remember, it's what's coming in versus what's going out. You have some fixed expenditure that you can't do anything about. You're going to sign up to a course, and And this is not even considering the debt. You have just some things you have to consider. You need to eat. It's really important that you can eat as well as you can. You are going to be paying rent, most likely, unless you have, really fortunate circumstances, and you're able to either live near your university, or, you're in a position where you own a house that's near the university. Those are, if you're in the normal position, which would be where you've got to rent, then you're going to have a fixed amount per month that you need to spend. You're going to have to pay probably a fixed amount for your groceries. And groceries will include, fun things as well. So, if you want to buy alcohol or different sorts of lavish expenses, just to have fun at university, which is a huge part of the normal life cycle, even now, then, you need to be mindful of this. Obviously, you have your bills, and this is going to tie into really who you interact with at university, because your bills will be, largely fixed as well, and so your transport. You can't have much influence on this or this. Like, ultimately, pretty much these days, you need a stable internet connection. You can maybe skimp on a TV license, but you're going to need a mobile phone. You're going to have to pay the electricity, the water. They're going to be a set cost, and that's just how it is. The difference, though, this is probably worth saying now, is you're going to get your student loan in 3 chunk payments throughout the year, which is a bit weird, because you get payment 1, you get payment 2, you get payment 3. This one will come in probably a little bit later than you'd like. It'll be around September time for most courses. So you're probably going to have to spend money before you actually get your loan. So you can't really rely on it 100%. You certainly want to be avoiding anything that promises you free money. So that includes, payday loans or things like that. It sounds really simple, but you'd be surprised how many people end up, borrowing a little bit of money here and there from a company, and they get absolutely destroyed because they end up paying ludicrous amounts in interest. But the thing you have to be mindful of is you have these fixed expenses every month. You probably need a deposit for rent in year 2, potentially not year 1 if you're living in halls. But again, it depends where you're living. And then you have these fixed payments. This one will be perhaps January time, and this one might be in March, something like that. The payments will vary, and you'll need to read the terms basically of your course / your finance provider. So you might be with Student Finance England, Student Finance Wales, etc. Depending on which one you're with, they'll have slightly different payment dates. So you might not be the same as the person next to you. So just keep that in mind. So you get 3 payment points, and they're going to be very strangely distributed, the amount of money. Generally, this one is a bit smaller than you'd expect. It might be 25%. Then the second one is, again, something quite small, 25%. And then it's at the last one where they just give you all the money for some reason. So you don't want to be planning this so that by the time you get to the end of your student loan, you're going to be down to 0. That would be not ideal. But also you need to be mindful of the fact that your rent might not cover your loan may not cover your rent, especially if you have parents who earn a certain amount of money. It tends to be the middle class, so people who have parents who are fairly well off, but not massively well off. So these people might not have as much disposable income as they'd like, so they don't feel that they've got a lot of money, but compared to some other people, they do. And then based off the current system that we have, this means that those people in the middle will tend to struggle the most. If your parents don't earn a lot of money, then the government will give you quite a bit. I believe at the moment it is all a loan, so there is no grants, which is different to how it used to be. In previous years, you used to get quite a substantial amount as a grant if your parents didn't earn a lot of money. However, the UK government has since changed that. So onto the other thing is the course materials. I've probably put this in, but I don't emphasize it that much, as realistically the course materials are not going to cost you that much in most cases. I would say, and I say this with the assumption, and nobody is just off the record, I guess, but generally you will find these materials yourself. I will leave that up to your own interpretation, but I wouldn't go out and buy that textbook that is £200 that the course leader necessarily recommends. In most cases, 90%, 95% of the cases, you probably don't need it. And if you do need it, then check on eBay. You can find a super cheap version usually of an old edition, like, you know, a couple of editions old. It might be £5 instead of £50, and you've saved yourself a huge amount of money there. Cool. So I've talked a bit about what you're spending money on and the fact that there's different payments. So you've got your maintenance loan coming in 3 different payments and sometimes weird fractions. And you also have the student, you have the expenditure, which is monthly. So you need to make sure that you're not going to zero after month 1 of getting your loan, because you have to be able to sustain yourself between this period. Other things you're going to spend money on as well, not just the fixed stuff that we were looking at before, is these things. And I've crossed a lot of them out because they're not that relevant at the moment. You know, a lot of your hobbies may well now be sitting and watching movies with your flatmates. And, you know, that may well be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who you are. But, you know, assuming that life gets back to normal by the time your university course ends, which, you know, is looking quite likely with the rollout of the vaccine, then, you know, at least by the end of your course, this should be quite relevant. Year 1, you know, who knows what's going to happen? As we've seen this year, it's been an absolute crazy mess. And, you know, that's due to a number of reasons that we're not going to get into here. But the point is you have a lot of different things that you're going to want to spend money on. You know, this is the kind of thing that you don't have to, but you should, because it's, you know, it's part of your experience. It's part of learning to be an adult, which is what university is really about. So, you know, nights out, or indeed nights in, if, you know, we don't get anywhere near back to normal, you know, you're going to want to spend money on things like alcohol, club entry, taxis, you know, these sorts of things. Food is also going to be a huge expense. So you're going to want to spend a decent amount of money on food, whether that be taking out food or ordering it in. There will be people who spend £0 on food throughout the whole of their university course. But, you know, you're by no means obligated to do this. I think, as with everything in life, you know, take it in moderation. Don't be the person that didn't order a takeaway in year 1, but don't be the person that ordered a takeaway every night. You know, go sit somewhere in the middle, and you'll be much happier than either of those people. The other thing is your hobbies. So you've got to figure out before you go to university or while you're there, what you're going to do as a hobby. Now, obviously, not as many hobbies exist now that are, you know, feasible, but there's still loads of hobbies. You know, if you want to do something that's, you know, to do with technology, absolutely loads of people will take you in, and you can do that. You know, and presumably these things will come back by the time you're there. You know, cinemas, gigs, music festivals, these sorts of things. You know, assuming that they get back on track, you're going to want to go to those because it's part of the experience. You know, this university is a package, and you get in your education, which is going to set you up for your future career, hopefully. But you also want to make sure you take away the memories, because that's really important. There's not going to be another time in your life, potentially, that you're going to be able to sit around and study for your entire day. You know, when you get into the working world, you are unable to take the same levels of freedom as you have at university. So you could be sacrificing your freedom for years to come. So make the most of it. You know, you're absolutely in a fortunate position to be able to go and study. So take advantage of it. New clothes, I'd probably say this is less important. You know, just buy whatever will get you by when you're at university. You know, I think that's the way to go. Generally start places like Primark and other places like H&M can sell you decent clothes. Not the best for the environment, to be honest, but, you know, serviceable whilst you're there. Figure the other stuff later. I don't think this is the key place to be spending money when you're at university. I would deprioritize getting things like new clothes and things, unless it's really important for your health and well-being, which I'll talk a little about in a minute. But, you know, other things like haircuts and beauty expenses, go for these. If they make you happy, it's important. But, you know, keep in mind what's reasonable. So, you know, don't spend ludicrous amounts. And then obviously any subscription services or traveling if you have the opportunity to do so. So these are things that you might want to do, you might want to spend money on. And so it's important that you think about these expenses and keep them low so that you can spend more on this. this is where you're going to want to spend the money, and you're probably not going to have as much money as you want to spend on this stuff. So that's why I give you the advice of cutting down on things like new clothes, especially the designer ones, because they can be really expensive, and you can just get a lot more experiences for the same money when you're at university. So you've got to think about where you want to allocate your money. I like to think of university as a huge investment in yourself. So you are going to university to learn, but also to get an experience that you'll probably not get at any other point in your life. So for some people, that will be the best experience of their life. Other people will be the worst experience of their life, but it's an experience, and it will make you who you will be in the future. So, really take the most of it. If you can go and attend the university in person, you absolutely need to go. I know some people are doing this stuff fully online these days, but it's not the same. And if you can go and experience, a new culture, if you're from outside the UK, or even just a new town, if you're from the UK and you've only ever lived in one place, it's absolutely priceless, because the alternative is that you'll stay where you are forever and you'll never really experience what you want to experience. So what if you don't have enough money? Not a good position to be in, but a position that most of the UK is finding themselves in right now. How can you increase the amount of money you get? I mean, we're in a services-based economy, so if you need more money in the UK, you need to work more. And so generally, what you've got to do is try and find ways to add value to other people's lives. And one of the ways of doing that is to be an online tutor. So this is obviously something I've got experience in. I spent the last 5-7 years being an online tutor. And it's actually a really enjoyable experience. Like it's one of the best parts of my day when I'm teaching. And I still teach to this day, mainly as a source of just, I get a great feeling of like I'm helping out people. And that can't be understated. It's a really nice thing to do. And you will get that if you become good at teaching. It will also develop skills that are going to be crucial for you getting employment in the future. So that's being able to teach people, it's being able to talk to people, and it's being able to succinctly say what you need to say. It can't be understated how few people can do this in the working world. People tend to get really good at doing one thing and then they stick there because they're very comfortable with what they're doing. So if you can be an online tutor, teach what you've just done at A-levels and now you're doing university, great. That's what this course is about. This is MyTutor. And obviously they hire students from universities. So check if you're in the target area and try and get on board. You can help with the education crisis that we've got going on at the moment in the UK. We have a situation where schools are being closed and reopened all the time. And this is a huge issue for the UK because they are our future workforce. And if they get set back years in education due to the pandemic, that's going to really hurt the UK in the future. So you can really help with this by teaching yourself. If you have some knowledge that you want to transmit, maybe you don't even have any knowledge and you just want to get into something. Maybe you can pick up a subject and learn about it, or something that you have a hobby in. People oftentimes forget what they do in their normal lives and how that could be valuable. So maybe you make little videos for yourself. Why can't you monetize that? And so that's one of my suggestions down here is, be a video editor. If you can find a way to monetize something that you're already quite good at or that you enjoy doing, then you're going to be in a much better position than someone who does absolutely nothing. Not least because you're going to build experience at the least, and at the most, it might become your new job. You could become an influencer or some sort of YouTuber if it goes really well. And obviously, don't rely on this. You can't guarantee it, but it's something that could happen if you are in a position. Similarly, maybe you get a love of starting businesses and you want to be an entrepreneur. There's nothing that's stopping you. The UK is arguably not the best country to do this in, but equally, you can come up with an idea and get funding in the UK and then try and run with it. So there's no reason why you can't do this. Now, say you don't have any skills, or perhaps that's not fair to say, but you can't quantify something that you feel is your unique selling point. There's no reason why you can't come up with something. Start simple, just start scheduling, finding, organize other people's calendars, or do some sort of online customer service, just build a basic skill set, because this will get you exposure to then get other jobs that'll be useful to you in the future. So if you do some online customer service, you're going to generate customer facing skills. So you're talking to people all the time. And this is going to mean that you are going to sell this in the future. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of competition for graduate jobs, and it's only going to go up. There are more people going to university this year than ever before, and they're all studying online, and they're all in positions where it's probably a bit tight to fail them, you know. So in that context, it's only more likely that more people are going to get degrees, more people are going to get better degrees, and so you need ways to differentiate yourself. And this is one of the ways, you know, if you can go and get a part-time job, or you can start a little project of your own and start making money with it, then that's going to differentiate yourself. Or, you know, if you're an online customer service, maybe you manage to increase sales by a certain amount. This become more important as you become closer to graduating. But before that, you just need to be aware that you know, this is something you want to focus on so that you can sell it in the future. Equally, you know, maybe there's a good cause and there's a charity or something that you can support, but you've also got to keep in mind this is about increasing your income, so it's less about the good feels and more about you know, getting more money in your bank account, which is arguably a slightly different thing. I've also seen these other jobs, so people are becoming now part-time babysitters on the internet, so there's no reason why you can't do this, or even just testing websites, so just literally going through and clicking on buttons. There's loads of jobs, and what I've tried to do here is just spitfire. This took me like 10 minutes to make, but the idea is, you know, you can find all these jobs which are not reliant on the pandemic. Don't just think there's no jobs, I'm going to sit at home and suffer. Find a job, you know, do your best. Keep applying, keep building new skills, and worst case scenario, you know, just learn online, do some coding courses. You know, it's going to be a more important skill going forward. So if you have absolutely no marketable skills, then start learning to code and try and build that into your repertoire. You know, we're just trying to think what could be resilient to change. And to do that, you got to look at the macro trends. And the macro trend is we're going more towards technology. So if you want to have a chance of getting on that boat, then you know what you need to do. Now, bear in mind, if you have another avenue of making money, then that's super cool. Go with that and double down. Okay, so I had a Microsoft Excel tutorial here. But I hope that can be seen. You're going to lose access to seeing me. So I hope that is acceptable to you. But I think this is quite important. And I'm just going to build something that is very, very simple. And hopefully from that, you can, you know, generate your own ideas. Now, I absolutely understand that a lot of you will never have seen Microsoft Excel in your entire lives, and that's fine. I'm going to hopefully teach you a little bit about what it can do, and then hopefully that'll spur you on to, you know, look at it yourself in the future. Now, don't worry if you're an absolute technophobe. I will only spend about 5 or 10 minutes here. This is not supposed to be super detailed. You're going to know what you need to do on Microsoft Excel afterwards, but it's supposed to be a bit of an entry point so you can see what it can do. So if we're making a simple student finance planner, yeah, you need to figure out what's important, and probably what's important, right, is how much money you're going to have at a certain point in the year. So let's say we were starting this year and we're studying till June. Yeah, you're going to get some injections of money. So you're going to put your money that's coming in, and you're going to get some money. Let's just keep it simple and say you get £1,000 here, you get £1,000 here, and you get £1,000 here. You now have to manage that and budget it. So the simplest thing to do is to split it equally, right? So how much money do you have to spend? Well, you're going to have to split this £1,000, and it is an arbitrary amount. Let's make it more reasonable. I'll make it £3,000. I'll make that £3,000, and I'll leave that one at £3,000. Now, I know some of you will not have access to this much money, and that is why you need to not rely on your student loan. You need to try and get a job to supplement that if you're someone in that position. And I was someone in that position, and it's not the nicest place to be to see that your rent is actually bigger than your student loan. Now, I started the year, I think my student loan was £4,000. There was no grant for me, and my rent was £4,400. So you can imagine if we have this is out, and then this is in, well, in minus out, minus £400. Straight away, I know by the end of the year, I'm going to be out £400. That's really not a nice feeling, if I'm really honest. But the point is, what did I do? Well, this was my student loan. And, I had to come up with alternative ways of making money. So I was also in a position where, fortunately, I got some money from my parents. I can't remember how much it was. But, let's say it was £100 a week. That's another £4,000 or something. So, that's starting to get into the realm of, you've got some money to live and it's okay. But equally, right, if say this was my only sources of income, you only got £8,000, yeah. And then imagine we go across the whole year. So that's going to be like 9 months, because we're talking student months, right? So we've got this much is the total. This is the months. And then we're going to get this and divide by that. I know nobody's following the Excel. That's not the point of this. The point is that you can use an Excel tool to do these calculations for you. So if you're not strong with mathematics, you can learn Excel. It's a very different skill. All you need to know is the operations that you set up. So this would be looking at like your GCSE maths, which I have assumed that you have. If you don't have that, then it's really worth building on your simple finances. So yeah, we've obviously got £800 a month. But if you consider things like your rent could be £300-400, your food could be a couple of £100. You don't leave yourself with that much money. So this is the amount per month that we have to spend. So what else comes out? So in order to supplement this, what I did was basically, picked up a part-time job. So I had a part-time job. I was a waiter at the United Football Ground, and this was actually a really cool job. I got to go in the boxes and deliver meals to some of the really high up people. People who have in the VIP boxes, and this was quite well paid, to be honest. But obviously not ludicrously so, but enough where it's definitely a worthwhile gig, and the tips can be even better. But unfortunately, this is not what we would call a resilient job. So if you remember on the previous slides, we don't want to be going into jobs that could potentially disappear or be disrupted by the pandemic. So if there is a surge in cases or a random decision by the government to do something, you need to be as resilient as you can to that. And so that's why we've thought about these different measures, and the main one is basically try and do something that is going to be resilient to the pandemic. So going back to this, you can use your budgeting spreadsheet to figure out how much you have to spend. So let's say that you now have try and group together the big ones. So just figure out, let's say, assume my rent is going to be £800 a month. Oh, no, that's ridiculous. Sorry. So £400 a month. I am assuming that we are not in London. Everything in London is more expensive except food. So what I mean by that is your student loan will be slightly larger, probably not enough to cover it. It's generally a bit more difficult to go to university in London for this reason, especially if you don't have parental support or a local house. But what you can try and do is quantify how much everything is going to cost at the beginning. So just think, right, I'm going to need this much money for rent. And this, by the way, also forms a sound argument for parents who are just tight, and they do exist. Parents don't want to spend any more money than they have to. They are human beings, and generally people will not want to spend any more money than they have to, just like people won't pay any more taxes than they have to. That's just human nature. I think anyone would rather keep more money than they have, unless they have absolutely ludicrous amounts and they don't need it. So if you come up with a sound financial plan, this can really go about extra way of convincing your parents, what you're doing, especially because it shows the effort you've put in yourself. If you've calculated that you are really, you're living off £1 a day or something like that, then your parents are going to be much more inclined to just give you the money. So it comes a long way in terms of leveraging that, if that's something that you want. You could take the other view that you want to be super independent at university, in which case then you know what you need to do. You need to find a part-time source of income, and that could be any of the jobs that we've talked about, or it could be something that I've not spoken about, something you found, like a niche. I'll give you an example, although I guess it's kind of on the list, but when I was at university, or just before university actually, I made videos on the internet, like gaming commentaries, and made money through this. So it shows that there's, and at the time, this was not something anyone was doing. Like nobody was really making videos and putting them online. Now it's much more common. But the problem with it being more common is it means that people, you just get compensated a lot less than you used to. So now if you get 1,000 views on a video, it's not that valuable compared to how it used to be. And that's because there's a lot more people watching it. So it's always easier to capture a market when it's small. If you go into something that's huge, then it's much more tricky to take over that market. So that's something to keep into account. But so let's just say, make some simple assumptions. The rent is 3,200. We've obviously got let's say the part-time job supplements with another 4,000, not 40,000. That would be a very good part-time job. Be okay then. Perhaps you don't need this then. You can just live life as however you want, because you're probably not going to run out of money. So you've got about £1,300 per month. Once you've got all of these all in, you've got your fixed rent, which you're going to have to deal with. So remember, your in is 12,000 now. And then you've got to make sure that you account for everything that comes out. So you've got your rent, it's going to come out. You're going to have your groceries. That's probably going to be about £30 a week. So you need, if you make some simple assumptions, what you can do is you can just build the picture of how much money you're going to have coming in versus how much money is coming out. If you think about your bills, that's going to be maybe £80 a week, or £20 a week. And so now what we're getting is this picture of, how much money we have. And this is going to be a nice glorified view. I'm about to finish the tutorial, so apologies to those who absolutely hate Excel. But I do challenge you, why do you hate Excel? It's not that complicated, and it's not something that you couldn't understand through a few hours of watching YouTube tutorials, because this stuff is all available on the internet for free. And if you want to figure out how to be an expert on budgeting and accounting, some simple things, then you can do that with not too much effort. I know some people won't have the same mathematical background, and that's fine, but there's no reason why you can't develop it with a bit of practice. And I do emphasize, Excel is not the same as doing maths on hand. I'm not adding anything up here. I'm more remembering what I need to type in to get the computer to do the calculations for me. So perhaps that will emphasize some people to get involved. So yeah, now we're going to calculate what's coming in. So we've got this 12,000. We've got to take away the rent, the groceries, the bills, and now we have £7,000. This is obviously going to be bigger because I've assumed things like we have the part-time job, and I've assumed things like we have very few expenses. I've only calculated the rent, the groceries, and the bills. Remember from the previous slide, we had the transport, we had the course materials, we had, your variable expenses that could be on things. So this is really now what's your budget left after these three big ones have gone. So you need to remember you've got about 9 months that you've got to spend this money over. It's going to come in weird proportions. So don't just spend it all in fixed amounts. Maybe set yourself a fixed budget now of £500. So you don't go over £500 no matter what. And it's worth bearing in mind that you do want to try and avoid going down to zero every time. In the ideal scenario, you actually accumulate wealth throughout university. You'll have a little bit more than when you started, if you can get enough work, and or at least be in the same position where you've spent your money. And the reason for this is because you don't know what sort of unexpected expenses could occur. Any individual day you could get hit with a fine for doing something stupid on a drunken night out, or you could get hit with a parking fine if you're someone who has a car. There's different ways that you will lose money just through not being perfect in society and not following all the rules. And it's okay that you're going to lose money that way, but don't be caught out by it. Too many people will live life, they'll have zero money. You might be going negative, using the overdraft. And that's an important tool, actually. When you're a student, you can get these fantastic overdrafts that can increase your amount of money available to you by about £2,000 to £5,000. Try and avoid these. The people who are successful financially are generally not those who need these and rely on these overdrafts. It is not your money when you are going in the negative. You are borrowing money from the bank. Now, saying that, you can obviously use this as a tool, and use it as a way of spending more money. But I would generally advise against it if you can avoid it. Now, if you just are an absolute lad, and this is the time that you want to have loads of fun, and that money is channeling your fun, then who am I to say that you should not do that? But yeah, that's where this tutorial is going to end. The main thing I wanted to do was showcase how quickly and how easily you can do these things. Now, bear in mind, there is a few years of knowledge behind these Excel calculations, which has enabled me to do it more quickly and perhaps not in the most coherent way. But the point is that if you put some time in yourself, spend a couple of hours learning how to just track, how much money you have in your bank account, how much you're spending, is it going to make it to the end of the month? If you can do these sorts of simple calculations, it's going to set you up amazingly for not just university, but for life. So that's why it's an important one to talk about. So I think with that in mind, I think that's mostly everything I wanted to talk about. The word of the day is adaptable. You need to be adaptable in this environment. You're going to get some scenarios. The student loan obviously is going to come in these arbitrary amounts a few times a year, and so you need to make sure that you're not running out of money. But I think without that, I'm just going to end up repeating stuff that I've already said. I think I've got across the main points. So does anyone have any questions or anything that they want me to elaborate on? Because I'm happy to do that now. I'll take a look and see if there's any questions. But this is the point where you can ask anything about university, budgeting, finance, anything at all. How can you find out how much student finance you're eligible for? Okay, so generally you'll get this in a letter before you go to university, but I think there will be online calculators as well. Generally when you get a problem, I would just try and Google it. So figure out where you are. Obviously you're going to be in Wales, England, Scotland, most likely, unless you're from abroad. But you can use the government website to figure out how much money you have available to yourself. So obviously pick your start date here and use the government website to figure out what you want to do. So let's say we're a UK full-time student. You know, the maximum you're going to get is this. So generally, I would just ignore this tuition alone, because that's probably going to be the whole amount. And so this is going to be for the tuition fees. So, you know, obviously your tuition generally in the UK, all the universities just put their tuition fees at the maximum. So, you know, you will probably just have that as your actual number, but it's probably going to be 9,250. You're going to get different amounts of money depending on whether you live with your parents or not. And, you know, just go through this calculator. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So, you know, put it into Google, how much student finance am I going to get? And then go through the steps yourself, because it can be different for every person. But the main factors are going to be where you live, whether you're in London or not, or you're outside the UK. But if you're inside the UK, whether you're in London or not. And the other one will be how much money your parents earn. Now, saying that, if you don't live with your parents, then you will not be assessed on their income. But they do track people. So like, you can't just say, I don't live with my parents. They may well like send a letter to your parents or something to try and check it. So you can't just lie, unfortunately, and make loads of money. Not that you even make money these days, because it's all loans. So I think that's answered now. Would I recommend self-catering or catered accommodation? It really depends what you can afford. I think the cheaper option will always be self-catered, right? But there is a couple of benefits that come with going for catered accommodation. One is you're going to make friends a lot easier, because there are other people who are getting food at the same time as you, and naturally you will just talk about stuff. And this is, you know, a way to make friends. So that's a benefit that catered accommodation will give you. It also gives you a convenience. It's saving you the hassle of having to make it yourself, which can be a bit of a bother, especially, you know, in a position where, you know, you might not have a lot of time if you have a really intense course. Then on the flip side, maybe the food's a bit garbage, right? They might not make the nicest food in the world, but you're stuck with it once you paid for it, right? So you might have to choose between paying for food twice, or eating unhealthy food, or, you know, eating really healthy food if you're the opposite side. Maybe you're a fussy eater. You know, do you like mayonnaise, something like that? If you're one of these people who can't eat new food, then perhaps catered accommodation isn't the way for you, because it's just a waste. Also, you know, it takes away the freedom a bit of being able to make your own food. If you want to make your own food, you know, there's no point paying for it as well. Saying that, if money is no object to you, then you may as well just get the catered, would be my view, because then you've always got the option of going. And if you do want to just make your own food because you can do it better, then so be it, that's fine. So to answer your question, if money is no object, I'll probably just go for the catered accommodation. If money is an object, and, you know, you've got to consider if it's a worthwhile deal, because they're going to take over the responsibility of making food for you. But bear in mind, it might be restrictive. Maybe you have to be home at 7 p.m. every day, or you don't get your food. Not that great then, is it? You know, because you might want to be doing something else at 7 p.m. and then you just paid for food twice. So I hope that answers your question. You know, self-catered has its perks, also its downsides. You know, if the food's rubbish, or it's at awkward times, then maybe you get no food, and you have to buy it yourself anyway. So I've answered that now. I don't see any other questions. So unless there's more questions in the next minute or so, then we'll wrap it here. Does anyone have any more questions? It can be related to anything. It can be related to, you know, I don't know what positions you guys are at, but it could be maybe you've got, you know, you're starting your course, or you're going to start your course in a couple of years. Let me know, and I'll see if I can give you any tailored advice. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap here then. Any more questions? Cool. We'll wrap it here then. thanks for coming, everyone, and I'll see you soon.